Welcome to Wake Up World, where we inform you about different options and sciences to self-development and health and wellness. Today we have Melodye Curtin with us. She's going to be talking a bit of nutrition here. I'm going to just let you jump into an introductory on yourself. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself and what got you interested in nutrition?
Sure, I'd love to. Well, I want to start by saying, first of all, that I'm not a licensed nutritionist. I wouldn't want to misrepresent myself. All of my knowledge is through experience, research, talking to professionals, things that I learned in school. I can say I'm a dedicated practitioner of nutrition for over 30 years and study and experience all that time. And I've worked in a capacity as a doula, which gave me an opportunity to help pregnant moms with their pregnancy nutrition and nursing moms with their nursing nutrition. I'm also a licensed massage therapist with a focus on pain management for chronic pain due to injuries. And I recently came on board with you guys as a nutrition consultant. So I'm very excited to be joining Abundant Living Mind and Body. A little bit more about myself. My husband and I have 3 adult children, Darcy, Connor, and Maggie, and a son-in-law, Jared. We are a retired military family, so we've lived in lots of places, Hawaii a couple of times, Virginia, Missouri, Florida, Kansas. We're back to Missouri. All that moving around was very broadening, and we learned a lot from folks along the way. I'd say I first became serious about nutrition probably when we decided to have our first child. I've always loved learning about the human body. I loved biology and anatomy classes in high school, so nothing is more fascinating than growing your own human, right? I really got more intentional about what I was putting into my body when I realized that everything that I ate directly affected the baby's development. And so I became fascinated with what I could eat during each trimester for that stage of development. And so that's where I started, I think, my nutrition journey. And then during my 3rd pregnancy, I became very averse to meat, and that never left. So I began to transition over to vegetarianism. And at the same time, my husband Dan was deployed, and he felt really inspired that he should be eating cleaner and be eating less meat. And it was really kind of a funny time because I'm at home thinking, how am I going to tell him that I'm going to switch to a vegetarian diet? And he's thinking, oh, this is going to be a pain for Lydia to have to, adjust. We just were like on the same wavelength. And so that kind of began our journey to cleaner living and cleaner eating. I've been a vegetarian since that time, and eventually gave up dairy as well. But Dan eats meat now and then. Still, he mostly does eat a plant-based diet because I'm a great cook. It's like no complaints. Everybody eats my food. And I would say, these changes, they just naturally spilled over to our kids as well. We started taking a harder look at what was in their snacks and the ingredients and things like that, and what they were putting in their bodies because they were developing and growing, and we taught them. So we were just probably the only people in the commissary with 5-year-olds who were like reading the ingredient label. I can't get this one, Mom, because it's got red 40 and high fructose corn syrup. I need the fruit chews that are juice sweetened. And people would just, we were just odd at the time. I think now, it would be a little bit more accepting, but at the time people just thought that was like pretty strange. And we get some good questions too sometimes.
Yeah, I think that would definitely, I'm all about, does this look good? It's probably not good for me.
Yeah. Those dyes though, they can be a lot more crazy heavy than people realize. I have a sibling that he within his teenage years, like suddenly was like allergic to a number of things, but dye was definitely one of them, to the point where he couldn't use soap that had coloring in it. Just the touch of it on his skin was like really irritating. So it's interesting that even that doesn't, there's so much dye in everything. It's kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, it's gotta look like what it is.
All that Claude Monet color coding.
Yeah.
It was very triggering. It triggers behaviors too in some kids. So, you know, I realized that very quickly with ours, and a lot of moms maybe don't know this, but you can request, if the pharmacy is giving you Motrin or Tylenol or whatever, for dye-free version of that.
Oh, really?
Because so many of those, you know, they make the medicines look really appealing to the kids, right? So they want to drink it. And so they put a lot of dyes in there. And then you've just got, you know, this problem because you're trying to give them something to make them feel better and they're feeling worse. So you can get dye-free medications.
We're going to remember that for Parenting 101.
Yeah, that's what we need to do.
So would you say that you stick to like one method in particular, or that this is a compilation of a bunch of different techniques that you've come across and put together and adjusted as needed and stuff?
Right. So you mean like a dietary method?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
To make sure. I would say it's a compilation of things for sure. And I can use myself an example of like how that works, I guess. So I mentioned that I became a vegetarian when I was 30, and I had given up meat, like red meat, years before that. And I was only eating, you know, chicken and fish and things like that, just maybe a few times a week. And that was more for just my commitment to the environment than anything else. But I began to notice that like I felt better that way, and I digested things better. I wasn't as constipated and things like that. And so I thought I wanted to stick with that. But I did find that some of the healthy foods I was eating, like some of the fruits and vegetables, were making me feel really sluggish. Like particularly like potatoes or something like that, I would just pass right out. I was gone. Like I had to have a nap if I ate something. And so I started, you know, just digging around, and I found a book by Dr. Peter, I hope I say it right, D'Adamo, I think is how you say his name. And he wrote a book called Eat Right for Your Type. And so basically it's the idea that your blood type interacts differently with certain foods. So I thought, well, this is really interesting. And so some of those foods that I had been experiencing trouble with were on my list. Now, that's not something I adhere strictly to because, you know, he suggests things for my blood type that I had given up and didn't want to eat again, right? So I didn't adhere strictly to it, but I could certainly see that, okay, well, some of these things are messing with the insulin in my blood and making me feel really bad, even though they're good, healthy foods, right? They just weren't helping. They weren't bad foods. They're good, nutritionally dense foods. They just weren't good for me. So I, you know, could really cut back on those, and then I feel a lot better. So that's one thing. And then when I was in my 40s and in massage school, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and I was having really bad, painful flare-ups with that. And, you know, when I went to the doctor, I was told it was, you know, the best they could give me was like this immune depressant, like it's an immune system depressant. It's much like what they would give to somebody who's having like chemo or something like that. And it was going to be very damaging. And I was going to have to go every 3 months to have my liver checked. And I just thought, well, this is going to cause a whole other problem, you know? And first of all, I want to say I was just devastated that I had, you know, to find out that I had an autoimmune disease. And I figured there had to be something deeper going on there. There was a reason my body was reacting that way. And so that was a really, well, I went into that journey that I won't get into now because it's a whole other interview. But I will say that what I read was that most people who are successful reversing their RA with diet and nutrition are vegan. And so because of that, I gave up dairy and animal byproducts and things like that. So the hardest part probably of adjusting my diet was just giving up foods that were vegetables that I loved, but that cause inflammation in the body. And it was hard at first. I felt like I can't eat anything at all. Like, but with research, I found supplements and herbs, and in combination with, all these things that I limited or didn't, eat anymore or drink anymore, whatever. Last checkup that I had just before I turned 50, my doctor's like amazed at my blood work. You've completely reversed this. And so, I know that that's not the outcome for everybody, but I'm really thankful that was mine. It's kind of a lot of hard work to get to get there, but and I think we were talking before about just how much research that there is, and theories of thought on nutrition, and there's just so many different like trends popping up all the time. Kale's a superfood. Don't eat kale; it's terrible for you. There's just what do you believe? What do you adhere to? And I always advise people like just kind of use all that as a menu and see what speaks to you. What changes can you live with? What can you stick to? What's going to be something that you can be successful at, and start doing those things, and to take really small steps and see how you feel. And then, hopefully that's motivation to do more things, make more changes.
Okay. That makes sense. So would you say that you make recommendations of, small and little things at a time? So you take this tiny little thing out of your diet, or just this small thing out of your diet, and then add upon that as time goes on and as you're able to do so?
Correct.
Okay.
And there are certain things like, you can eat to nourish the brain if you have, for focus, if you have a child who has ADHD, or, in my son's case, he has autism. And so we ate a lot of really brain healthy foods. And research that I had read suggests that, heavy metals affect, they affect all of us, but a lot of us can process those out and eliminate them. But sometimes with people with autism, their system doesn't work the same. And so those things get stuck there, and it can cause some inflammation in the brain for them, which makes focusing and communicating and even harder, and processing even harder. And so, I just had to realize that with Connor, that even though minerals are really important part of, what we need in the body of our nutrition, that I had to do something to kind of offset that a little bit for him. And so, for Connor, he takes fish oil every day because it helps his mind, and it helps to flush those things out. And that's what we found that worked for him, after reading about it. So, something like these kinds of adjustments take patience, and they take time, and some commitment, on our part, because unlike other things that we're given, we don't just take a pill and have a reaction sometimes, and sometimes people get discouraged with that and they want to quit. And so, I would say stick to it. Give yourself some time. You're worth that effort.
So on that same thought, it's a journey, it's testing, it's figuring out what works best. So on this journey, testing these different foods, if you will, how long do you recommend somebody stick with something going, is this working or isn't it working?
Right.
Or is it going to work later and it just takes time to start with?
Mm-hmm. I would say within 2 weeks to a month, in my experience, you should notice something. Some things are more immediate, because if you've got an intolerance, for instance, to a food, and you take that out of your diet, your stomach cramps might stop, So some things are more immediate, and some things take more time. And then sometimes you might just, might not notice a difference at all. And I do want to say too, I'm not against medication. I'm not here to poo-poo like medicine. It's important and it has its place. I just feel like a lot of diseases that we're dealing with, like, blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, these things are food, they're nutrition driven. It's how we're using our food, quantities, what we're eating. All of these things affect those bigger issues under the surface. The root of the problem is down there. It's what we're putting in our body and how we're using those things. But I would say if somebody's suffering, and they need some pain relief immediately, or, whatever it is that they're suffering from, maybe it's like a more emotional, like a mental illness issue or something, the medication might be okay to start with, and to help you get to where you need to be so that you can function and explore these things, right? It doesn't mean that you have to stay on them. You work with a doctor with that. Don't do this on your own. But if you decide, like, I want to try these supplements that I found, or this diet, you can talk to them about, like, backing off on those meds a little bit and seeing that helps you. And, if you have a strong nutritional base, and anything that you have to take, medications or therapies, you're just going to respond better to them if you've got that strong nutritional base. So sound nutrition, it positively affects everybody. It's going to do you some good. And you might, have a reversal of something, just like I got to experience, or just maybe that you're able to, you elevated yourself as much as you can. You're feeling as good as you can, and you have to have some of this medication. My husband, Dan, has chronic pain, and he does have to take medication for that, but he takes a lot less than is prescribed, and he doesn't have to take it as often. And so, that's good. That's where we are with that. And that's less damaging to his body. So we're going to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think a lot of people can tell, at least, like, how sugar, like an excessive amount of sugar or processed foods can make one feel. So, so it makes sense that, eating greens or fish or whatever is best with the body is gonna be noticeable on a positive scale too. It just might be a matter of doing that more consistently before somebody feels a difference, if they've been pretty consistent with the other stuff for a while too.
Correct. Yes, and I will mention that sometimes also when you start down this path of using nutrition or supplements, and supplements as medication, that sometimes you feel worse before you feel better because your body's trying to dump a lot of junk. It's getting filtered out, and you're becoming a healthier person. So, if you're somebody who's like weaning off caffeine, yeah, you're going to have headaches and you're going to feel pretty wrong first. But, stick with it. You have to stick with it, because you get through that time and you begin to feel better. And then you realize, like, oh, I feel better than I feel more alert without the caffeine than I have in a long time, and I'm able to focus better. So,
That makes sense.
A lot of times too, when we use things like that, we're masking what our body really needs. If we're tired, what is our body telling us? We need to take a rest. And we live in a culture where we push through. Like we don't, it's seen as a weakness. Like if you take a nap, take the 10 or 20-minute nap, in the middle of the day. I do that as often as I can. When I start feeling sluggish and I'm pushing through, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to take a power nap. That's what we call them. And, I have never slept longer than 30 minutes. That's like a big nap for me in the middle of the day, because your body knows, it's daytime. So you're not deep asleep. You're not in REM. You're just powering down a little bit. You're powering down your system. You're refreshing, and you wake up just feeling so much better. And there are a lot of companies that are starting to realize that too. You have these big, like Google, they treat their workers really well. A lot of companies are starting to realize, like, we need nap rooms or nap pods, or something like that. My cousin who lives in New York, I mean, what opened up near her work was this rooftop like napping station with hammocks and all this stuff. And so you could go and just like take a nap. Take a nap as part of your lunch break, you know, in a safe space. And she was like, it was great. So
that's pretty cool. I've never heard of one of those things, but
this was post-COVID. I'm sure that is not in existence right now, but
super nice. Yeah, it's one of those things that definitely gets you listening a lot more to your body too, because it's really wise in letting us know what it needs and wants, and like pain's another one of those factors that's letting you know, hey, change something. And so this is definitely one of those things that for some of you that may have seen the quote we had on the page for the link here. So Hippocrates, father of modern medicine, was had said to make food your medicine and medicine your food, or something along those lines, paraphrasing it. But basically the meaning of like Melody's mentioning of taking, you know, if there's a lack of certain nutrition and certain things, incorporating that into your life, because there's a lot of that's naturally abundant in certain plants. So like one thing that I found really fascinating, nutrition course I was taking when I was in massage school as well, was that there are certain foods that are really important for, there's like certain fats that are very healthy and good for the myelin sheath and the little protective coating in neurons and stuff. And like we hear a lot of stuff of like, oh, you know, fats being bad and stuff, and a lot of that stuff that was one of those trendy things and whatever. But then they were mentioning how like, hey, you know, you want to have fish oil and avocados and stuff like that, and that's actually very helpful to prevent things like Alzheimer's.
Yes.
And it got me waking up, because, you know, I've had some relatives pass from dementia and Alzheimer's, and I was like, well, I gotta start eating avocados then, and like I felt really good about just, you know, chowing on some guac, and it felt amazing. But, you know, there's like no shame there, because you know, it's like, this is gonna help me out. But so definitely like what you're saying, this is awesome. So it's words.
No, I think it's definitely very important, and our bodies are amazing things. Like if you think about it, most people go 20 years eating, 20, 30 years eating crap before their body gives out and is finally like, this is so much that it's doing enough damage that they go and they have to be hospitalized, or they're diabetic, or, you know, something that's non-reversible for most cases.
Right.
And that's crazy. Like that the body can go that long. So you should be, if you think about it, if you're eating properly and I'm a big thing in moderation in all things.
Yeah.
For that time, I mean, you're going to avoid a lot of those things, I would think.
Well, even over the past decade too, like I remember back in the 90s going a lot more to like, you know, the gas station with cousins and stuff, and just getting a lot of like, there were a lot more like loaded sugary things back then, I felt, before they started going to the natural movement of like less dyes and different ingredients and stuff like that, because obviously people were getting really really not too well on that. But I've noticed that the same cousins and stuff that we would go and indulge on this kind of stuff, we've all really slowed down on that. I've even talked to adults at some get-togethers that, you know, we used to prefer brownies and cookies and stuff to the refreshments and stuff. And sometimes that's still fun, but there's actually a lot of us that have been like, you know, a veggie tray would be kind of nice. Like that today, but
there was a little slogan when I was growing up that said, fruit is nature's candy. And so I used to say that to my kids all the time, because we always had fresh fruit on the table. That was our dessert. I would tell them, it's nature's candy.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember the exact statistic, but I read somewhere that was like, even since the early 1900s, like 1910, the intake of sugar, processed sugar, has gone up, like skyrocketed, like a ton, like absolutely, like the number is like mind blowing how much sugar we're intaking. Like the average family, like it was like a yearly basis, it was like a pound or like something, or it was like 10 pounds or something like that. We've gone up to like quadrupling that.
That was to cover up the taste of the fat-free stuff, wasn't it?
I'm not 100% sure exactly, but I can't remember the exact number. So
I have a theory on that, actually. I have a theory about that. If I could just, there's a few things I want to address that you guys brought up. I actually have notes on them. I want to jump in and.
Oh yeah, we're just dabbling. We're just dabbling. Yeah, go for it.
You're bringing up great points. So we could talk about the sugar for just a minute. If you notice, in most ingredients, you'll have sugar, corn syrup, and sometimes you'll have sugar, corn syrup, and high fructose corn syrup in a product. And nobody needs that. Our bodies can't even process that much sugar. It ends up turning it into unhealthy fat. And it does a lot of damage to a lot of other things too, like our muscles. It breaks down our muscle tissue and makes them really soft. It's not good for the brain. So the reason, my theory, is that by nature, we're really attracted to sweet things. I mean, mother's breast milk has a sweet taste to it, right? It gets us to eat. And so we're naturally attracted to sweet things. And that's why when you're starting to feed your baby solid food, the recommendation is don't feed them the sweet stuff first. Don't feed them fruits first, because that's all they're going to want. You know, the recommendation is you start them off with something kind of bland to get them used to the texture, and then you start them off with vegetables, and not the sweet vegetables, because you want them to get used to the taste of their veggies first, because they're naturally going to be drawn to that sweet thing. And so, you know, producers have figured this out. You know, consumers, if you're, I mean, I have found, like, why are we sweetening some things? Like, why is there high fructose corn syrup in bread or tomato sauce? There's no need for it. And it's just simply to get you more attracted to that. If you taste that once and you're like, oh, I like this because it's sweet, you know, I mean, your taste buds are reacting to that, then you're going to buy that product more. And so it's simply there it's spoiling our taste buds, though. This is what I used to explain to the kids. Like, you know, I fed them fast food and things when we were traveling around initially, until I got more wise about that. And, you know, once you have those flavor enhancers and things like that, it really spoils your taste for actual food. And so you have to kind of retrain your palate. You know, now they would eat some of that stuff. I remember one time we're on vacation and they're like, oh, can we just please have, I won't mention what, because I don't want to, you know, make anybody, I'm not shaming anybody, but they asked for a certain food from a certain restaurant. And I was like, oh, you know, once a year won't kill you, we're on vacation. Okay, you know, we'll get it. And they were just really quiet, you know. And I was like, what's the matter? Are you guys not, they're like, it tastes like plastic. This isn't food.
The body rejects it.
Right.
Okay. Real quick, I don't mean to cut you off at all. We'll get back to what you're talking about and some of the other things you wanted to fill in on. But Dr. Morehouse has joined us, so we'll bring him on.
Fantastic.
Hi, Carl. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good. Okay. Hi, glad to be here.
Yeah, it's good
Here
to have
talk
you.
about nutrition. Yeah, that's great.
All right.
Thank you for your husband's service. I understand he's
Thank you.
been in the Army.
Yes, he has. The Navy and the Army. He's a career man.
Well, good. Thank him for my service, and thank you for being an Army wife. I know what's involved in that.
Thank you so much.
I had one of those once upon a time. So
Yeah. The whole family serves is what we say.
indeed. Yeah, they do. So how far have you guys gone into this? I heard you talking about high fructose corn syrup and things like that. And I heard you ask the question as to why. Do you want to know the answer why? Do you know why they do that?
Yes.
Well, back in the 30s, there was a tremendous effort put afoot through the Department of Agriculture during the Depression, which was trying to make sure that Americans did not go hungry. And as a result of that, they set aside quotas for the amount of corn that needed to be grown and other things. And then during the process of doing that, the Department of Agriculture felt very good about that accomplishment, because even to, his last dying breath, the guy who was in that position, claimed that, well, we saved Americans from starving. And, and so I get that, but there was such an overabundance of corn that research went into other things that corn could be used for. And that was where high fructose corn syrup was developed. And so then high fructose corn syrup, irrespective of the medical problems that it causes, and it causes many, and there are many things that are linked to it, as you know,
Yes.
Because there is such an overabundance of it, and price drives everything. So as a replacement for cane sugar or beet sugar, it went to high fructose corn syrup. It's grown in the billions of metric tons, and corn syrup it's easy to process. They throw it in trucks and trains, and they transport it around the nation, and in fact sell it to the world in liquid form. And it's just an easy, cheap additive to throw into everything. And most people, just as you pointed out, have no clue what it really does for them, or does to harm them. Yeah, but that's why it's there.
Thank you for that history lesson. I did not know. That's wonderful.
It was considered quite an accomplishment at the time, believe it. I mean, the Depression were people standing in line to get a bowl of soup, and
Right.
people of my age, my parents at that time became migrant workers, going from field to field, picking peas and hoeing cotton and doing stuff like that to be able to put some bread on the table. So the charge from the president at that time and subsequent presidents for about a 20-30 year period was make sure that we are growing agriculturally the food that we need to feed Americans, and so that Americans don't go hungry. Of course, we all know that that didn't really stop anything in terms of hunger, because all you have to do is go to some outback, area in Louisiana, as an example, and
Right.
people are still starving. But the idea is that it was there, and then of course factory farms started taking over and pushing mom and pops out of the business. But mom and pop got smart. Those that didn't sell out went and turned to become organic farmers, right? Huge percentage of them. And that was one of the things I was going to ask you about is what are your thoughts on organic? I mean, I can do my spiel on that, but I'm interested in what you think about it.
My take on it is pretty simple. I say eat organic as much as you can. Obviously, not everybody can afford to choose organics, or they don't have them available. And I would much rather see people eating fruits and vegetables than not eating fruits and vegetables. There are some alternatives to that, of course. You were touching, I think, a little bit on food deserts there, although we weren't really calling it that, which is, home gardening and community gardening, farmers markets and things like that. So there are some other ways to get fresh fruits and vegetables and organics in your diet. The things that our food is treated with, it's so toxic. And the food just absorbs that. So, I had seen a study maybe a year or two ago of a family in Sweden. I don't remember where I saw it, but they tested everybody's, the family is like, no, we don't eat organic and we don't see the importance of it. And so they did blood work and on all of them, and even found it, those toxins to be high in the baby, which made all of the mom, of course, was just like, oh no, we're gonna do better, and buying the organics, and then retested their blood later and found that their blood was free of those toxins, a lot of which are heavy metals, and you have to be careful with organics too, I think, because, even though they say organics on a lot of labels and a lot of stores are carrying them like as a store brand and they're more affordable organics or whatever, I feel like, maybe they're not treating the plants anymore that are growing, but the soil is contaminated. They're still growing in the crops in the same soil. And so, but they can technically, call it organic sometimes. So, you have to be careful. You have to do your research and buy from reputable places. For people who cannot acquire organics or can't afford them, there is a theory of thought called, I don't know if you've heard of this, but the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So I always kind of give that to people to research as a guide. But, there are certain fruits and vegetables that they're just not safe to eat if you eat them not organic. They have so many pesticides on them, apples being one of them, which my son, Connor, who is a person with autism, he had to have an apple a day. It was like part of his regimen. So for us, there was no doubt we were going to buy organic apples. He needs that. And, we were doing all these other good things for his brain. We certainly weren't going to give him a poison apple, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. But there are a lot of things that really, and there are a lot of foods that are treated with pesticides that, they are naturally, I grow them in my garden and they're natural bug repellents, like not a lot of insects want to eat broccoli. It just smells bad as a plant. They're not super attracted to it. There's like some caterpillars I have to watch for, but, other than that, I can grow broccoli, pretty easily. And so that's what that list is about. It talks about the things that are most inundated with pesticides and things that don't have as much on them. They're safer to buy non-organically if you have to. That's always my advice on it. I'm happy to hear what you have learned as well.
Well, I think the last nutrition class I took was in college, and so I'm not a big expert on it, but I do know that organic continues to be an issue in terms of price difference, and that ends up being the big discriminator for people, because there are things like Market Watch that are making claims that, and the CDC and others are claiming, not CDC, but Market Watch, claiming that it only costs 24 cents more per unit to eat organic than it does to eat regular. Well, that's just crap, because just knowing that you were going to be here, I looked at the grocery bill, and I know that in Albertsons, organic milk is like $4.50 a gallon, and regular milk is like $2.80 a gallon. So that's more than 24 cents per unit. Iceberg lettuce, which is crap food anyway, but iceberg, it's better than some other things. It's better than French fries, let's put it that way. Iceberg lettuce, though, is, it's like a $1.19 a head for regular stuff, and it's $2.19, $1 more for a head of iceberg lettuce. So it's not cheaper, but your message is clear. And I was trying to say, okay, now what is it that someone with your skills and expertise needs to offer the world? Do you want to hear my version of that?
Oh, sure.
It is, people are overwhelmed with all of the information. You can, with a few mouse clicks, completely be just worn out. And as a single parent or a parent with a special needs child, or anything else, I just can't even imagine what it's got to be like to be a young parent now raising children, because it is so complex, and there are no single source places to go. Everybody's got some crazy version of something and something else, but people really need a single source place to go, where somebody who has the skills and the training and the experience can turn around and do things for them that give them comparative analysis about what a healthy menu for their children might be. in raising children. And I mean from Monday through Sunday, what a healthy menu plan might be. I know those are out there and you can go click around and find them, but they're always somebody's version of what's great now. And it's not somebody looking at it purely from a eating healthy because I have an autistic child, or eating healthy because the school systems don't do it. And the school systems don't. The school systems react to CDC and other organizations that provide guidelines, not rules that are enforceable with penalties, but guidelines. So I did a search, just getting ready, just looking. I looked at 19 different countries and what the meal plans are in 19 different countries compared to the United States. So this is kind of an extreme, evaluation, but just taking like New York City, Albuquerque, and a couple of other places. I mean, a typical school lunch can be pizza, chocolate milk, a banana, which is a horrible fruit, and then, on and on and on. If you understand where bananas are grown and the whole story and history behind bananas, you'll avoid them as much as possible. Talk about an absorptive fruit that, sucks in whatever you spray on it. Yeah. And then watch what they spray on them. I mean, it's killing the guys that tend the orchards there, kills them literally. And there are huge lawsuits against Chiquita and all the other people that make them go there and spray to kill the tarantulas and the other things that eat them. But anyway, our menus are horrible. They're atrocious. They're empty calories. Our children from ages 2 to 18 get 40% of their calories, 40% of their calories from sugar and fats. 40% from sugar and fats. And so there is no, that I found looking around, no, intelligent, guided, experienced person sitting down and saying, here's a meal plan for the week and base that on people recognizing that those people may not have the ability to spend 50% more on their food budget per month to eat organic. Even though Costco, Walmart, Albertson, Smith's, all of them, Kroger, they're all offering more organic choices. Those things are still more expensive and they're still not readily available across the spectrum. And most people, unless they're focused as you are on nutrition, they don't even really know the difference or why they should care one over the other. So have you written a book?
No. My knowledge is things I've learned from other people. I guess I never thought of myself as authoring, but
there's a book in everybody, believe me. And there's a book in you based on your message. And so I encourage you to sit down and put your thoughts on paper, but have a focus where you're really going to bring the most benefit, even if it is just addressing the autistic side, a special needs child, and the diet that you're putting together there, so that it's not just conceptual illusion for people. And what I mean by that is just talking about it. You have a wealth of information that needs to be objectified in writing some fashion, whether it's a web page or whether it's a pamphlet or whether it's a call me and, or let's get on a Zoom call and I'll teach you all about how to do a 7-day meal plan that will be beneficial to your children and, will be cost effective, et cetera, et cetera. So much of that is missing. And there's a lot of information, as I said, but it's out there for people who are willing to roll up their sleeves and go looking. I would submit to you that a good 75% of humanity is not prepared to go looking, doesn't understand, even if they do look at it. And people who are kind of in crisis with raising their children on limited income and in single family or single parent, or maybe blessed to have both parents present, it's hard. And it's why you see, and then it's as addictive as donuts. You get one parent that's fat, then you get two parents that are fat, then you get two parents and 3 kids that are fat. And that totals up to that's about 8,500 extra a year spent in medical costs, increased medical costs, just for being mildly obese. Did you know that? It's about
It was high, but I didn't know the exact.
$1,400 extra in medical costs per year for being obese. For the rest of your life, for the rest of your family's life, that becomes a significant trade-off in terms of being able to take that $8,000+ for a family of 5 and translate that over into organic, healthy eating, guided by somebody like you, not the institutions of CDC and other federal agencies, which again spend a great deal of taxpayer time and money to offer guidelines and then basically go, yeah, I hope it all happens. I mean, it's probably not that bad, but it seems that bad anyway, especially when you look at school menus. And I just did. So it's not good. I'm not making it up. So
no, I know you're not. When I was attending a private university when we first moved to Kansas, and I went to lunch one day with one of my classmates, and I couldn't believe the food they were offering them in the cafeteria. And I said, well, this doesn't look very good. How does it taste? And one of my other classmates said, oh, it's the same meals. We get the same meals they get at the prison. And so, that's a whole other.
Well, wait a minute. If that's Leavenworth, Kansas, if it's the disciplinary barracks, that's a good meal. So you want to make sure it's the big house in Leavenworth. It's the big house or the women's prison or something like that. Because
so this was word of mouth
pretty good.
One of my classmates, and maybe they were joking. Who knows? Maybe they just didn't like the food, but there's the whole.
The disciplinary barracks raise their own cattle and
they do
and raise their own vegetables and other stuff, and they actually sell them in the commissary there. What have you found about the commissary for military families? Any significant improvements or differences there? The organic choices there?
So at the commissary, there's a very small organic section, and I can't always get really good produce from it because it sits there. It seems to go bad. It would be well priced. It would be better than the store in town for organics. But I don't know if just not a lot of people use it, or it's just sits in the back, or it doesn't get shipped in time, or what it is. But sometimes it doesn't look so great. But I will say they're starting to carry a lot more foods that are allergy sensitive, non-GMO foods, healthy things like I could get at the health food store, like coconut oil and things like that. And so I felt good about that. I felt like, wow, this has been a long time coming, but they're finally going to do some actual food in here that people who have allergies or who are more health conscious can purchase, because it didn't used to be the case at all. So you just got what was there, and that was it. But now they're doing so much better. Like you can make requests, you can go in and talk to them about that, and it's really
they were doing that years ago when I was in the Army too. But I don't know that it ever worked. Going in and talking to them about getting additional items added to their lineup. But
they're better about it.
That's good.
They are better.
There again is kind of a closed community that would probably tremendously appreciate wisdom and a consolidated, wisdom, a menu plan for people, and explaining things as to why organic. Because if people search online and they go, well, why should I eat organic or regular? The common theme that's offered there is that there is, like Harvard Medical School has researched it and gone, well, there's actually no difference in nutritional value. Well, all right, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that if you're going to buy beef that's regular beef, that's hormone injected and steroid injected, et cetera, apologize for my dog, it's not that they're nutritionally different. It's the fact that you're ingesting poisons that are going to have some long-term cumulative effect that we have not even yet begun to recognize what that might be, or GMO foods or other things. That's why there's a difference. Nobody's saying that an ear of organic corn or an ear of corn grown wherever is different nutritionally. We're saying that, or you're saying that the organic is healthier. It's not going to poison you. And it's poisoning you every time you eat it, little bit after little bit after little bit. And they know that. And they are starting to make very deliberate links between the long-term ingestion of these pesticide and chemical fertilized foods and steroids and hormonally injected meats, from chickens to you name it, up to beef, whatever, and even those that are grain finished as opposed to being grass fed, right? So that's another kind of a trick phase they'll put in there, word they'll put in there, is they'll go, you can ask, is this beef, grass fed? And I know you know this. The reason why grass fed is more important than grain fed is a cow's digestive system is designed to digest grass, not grain. And I found this out about 10 years ago, but did you notice that they slaughter cattle 90 days approximately before that cattle would die a miserable death through the ingestion of grain to fatten them? You see that they live a miserable life trying to digest the grain that they are not. It's not what they're supposed to be eating. They're supposed to eat range grasses, etc. So if they just consisted on a diet for another 90 days of grains and all that they put in those grains to fatten them with, they would die from there's a toxicity that builds up in their system for eating that. I mean, I couldn't believe that when I found that out. I went, oh my God, that's, and they hide that from you. They don't tell you that.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So it's why it's important to eat, if you're going to eat beef, to eat grass-fed beef, because it's what the animal is supposed to eat. So it's healthier, as long as, of course, the grass is not sprayed with insecticides, and as long, of course, as the grass is, the beef itself is not injected with hormones and steroids to make it put on poundage faster, so it can be slaughtered faster, and so that they can get it to market and do their turnaround thing. But anyway, I hope I don't want to step on your message. I'm a blabbermouth about stuff. I just wanted to really support what you're doing, because I'm very much about it, and I just, again, want you to take seriously my comment that you need to get a web presence, and you need to be kind of a subject matter expert, as your husband will understand, a subject matter expert to talk about nutrition, nutrition for military families, nutrition for families with special needs children, nutrition for just families in general, and everything.
Nutrition for everybody. Yeah.
And if you could start with just offering progressive menus that were something, because that's what I keep looking for. It's what I keep asking about. I eat organic, and so my wife and I do, but if I were just somebody looking for how could I eat more healthy or healthier, and how could I take care of my family better, I would want to go to the place where I could find, a month's worth of cyclic, 7-day meal plans that said, go to these places regionally, these stores, and buy these kinds of things. And with these kinds of things, this is the kind of meal plan you can put together to feed a family of 5, say example. And then people can, cut down or increase based on their needs. But that would be such a helpful thing for mothers, particularly young mothers, to gain from your knowledge in that respect. It really would be, especially for young enlisted mothers and stuff in the military. It would be a powerful thing for them to have access to information like that somebody like you would put together. Otherwise, they're lost in the sauce, because it's so easy to do looking around out there, right?
It is. You do. And yet how I wish I had had those resources at my fingertips, you know, when I was a young mom, because there wasn't internet yet. I couldn't just, and then when there was, it was dial up. So things weren't fast. I couldn't spend a lot of time on the computer because I had little kids running around.
Yeah.
You know, I had to go acquire books and go to the library and all of those things and do a lot of reading. And at this, you know, it's a blessing and a curse because, like you say, it can be so inundated, and you kind of have to look where the source is coming from too. And sometimes messages are put out there that are you know, have an agenda. There's an agenda behind them, and so, you know, it's not correct information. It's there to sway you to, you know, to buy something. So it can be really tricky to navigate, and I'm here to help. You know, anybody ever wants to, you know, set up a consultation with me through this website, you know, I'm happy to help. And one of the reasons I became a massage therapist was to serve military families because, you know, I wanted an alternative for my husband's pain management than what they were offering at the time. And they've gotten a lot better at having more resources available to our soldiers, I have to say, and pain management clinic and things like that. But a lot of times it's still like a one size fits all offering for everybody. And that just doesn't work for all of us, as we've been talking about. Just a couple of things I wanted to cover really quick. I don't know how much time we have left, but
oh, you're fine. We're not. We aim for a certain time, but we're not dead set.
Not strict guideline. That's good.
Yeah.
Talk about these things forever, and I especially with you because you're very knowledgeable as well, and I'm learning a lot of things. I want to speak to something Jerusha was talking about earlier, which is that our body gives us signals and signs all the time about what's going on and what we need. And that's one of the things I think that has been the greatest for our family and for raising children who have been taught to listen to their body and to eat for whatever was like they needed. So our body has a lot of demands all the time, and it sends us messages. It's either telling us like, hey, you're doing great, everything's okay, or hey, I need something extra. It might be telling us, like, sending us a warning sign. And so teaching them nutritionally the way I did, they've learned that they can they pick up on those cues really quickly. And so as you were talking to Darcy, my daughter, before this started, and she was like really well versed in her husband's condition and all the things that they tried. And Darcy really saved her husband's life because he couldn't get anybody to listen to him. And at the time, she was working at the VA hospital in administration, actually, but she knew a lot of doctors, and she's studying medicine herself. So she knew something wasn't right, and she knew something was off. And she started, talking around and reading, and she's like, no, you get to the emergency room. Like, you need to go to the doctor right now. Get somebody to drive you there. And she met him there, and yes, he was severely dehydrated. He was, he wasn't absorbing any nutrients, and there's been a few times that we've, nearly lost Jared. So I always just attribute the fact, like, she made people listen, and she was just 20. And I think that's because, we grew up teaching them to listen. And so I will say, like, one of the best messengers that we have, that our body gives us, is our stool. So I know people don't usually like to talk about poop, but poop is a biomarker, and it's really important, and we should all be checking it every day. We should be looking at our poop. When the kids were little, I used to tell my husband.
Whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean checking it and looking at it? What are you supposed to do? What are they supposed to do with it?
You don't pick it up. You just look at it. You just take a look instead of just flushing
it down.
Look
for what? I mean, I get it, but look for what? I mean, I'm going to tell you, 98% of the people that you just said that to are all looking over their shoulders going like, she just said what? So, I mean, explain, what do you want them to look for?
I am going to tell
checking for food. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So when my kids were little, I would tell my husband the proof is in their diaper, because I could look at that and I could tell if they were absorbing nutrients, if they were digesting well, if they were dehydrated, if they were well hydrated, or if they were sick. All those signs are in there. There's a really great chart that you can use. I didn't know I could share this, or I would have prepared for that, but it's called the Bristol stool chart. It's on a lot of medical websites as well, and it tells you how to read your poop and how to interpret it. So, you know, you look at your poop. If your poop looks a certain way, you're constipated. You don't have any. You might think, well, I need enough, you know, fiber diet. You know, it talks about the color of your poop. You know, if you see like blood in your stool, that's very alarming. It could also be like hemorrhoids. So it tells you like the steps to follow if you see that more than once. The consistency of your poop is important. If it's greasy, that can be a sign of a condition.
What's this?
Bristol stool chart.
Bristol,
Okay.
and it's Bristol stool chart. And it's the one doctors use. And
I've
it's,
seen
you
it
know,
before. It's like, yeah.
yeah, you know, and a lot of people are just going to go to the bathroom and what do we all think? Gross, flush that down, right? But it's super important to take a look at that one. It's
Well,
telling you
that's
what's
because
going
Freudian
on in your body.
psychiatrist said that you have an issue if you're looking at your stool. That's why people stop doing that. At least people in my age group, anyway.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. It's a pretty important message. So I wanted to talk about that. There's also other messages we get from our body. You know, how are our fingernails looking and our hair? And this is really a more like Eastern way of thinking, because, you know, in Chinese medicine, as Drusha knows, they look at everything. They look at, you know, what your tongue looks like and your earwax and all the things. But there's just some simple things that we can check. And one of those would be like our urine too. You know, if your urine is light and not really have a color, then you know you're getting enough hydration. If it's darker and it smells, you know you're hydrated, or something's going on with your kidneys. You know, you want to check these things out. You don't just put them off. Something's going on there. Our lymph nodes, like we have lymph nodes all over our body, right? And most of the time we don't even know they're there. We don't realize. But, you know, if one is swollen and a little sore, well, your body's telling you that you might have an infection or be coming down with something. So there's always get a lump checked out. Let me just say, if you find that in your body. For women and for men too, you know, we're supposed to check our breasts. We're supposed to check our prostate if we have a prostate. So you're looking for those signs to make sure that you're staying healthy on the inside. And people don't like to talk about, you know, it's taboo, it's personal, but it's really important that we talk about these things and that we teach these things to our kids too. Because I'll tell you what, children, if they find a weird place on their body, they just think that that's normal. Like everybody is like that, you know? So, you know, my daughter one time just came to me and she's like, you know, I can't hardly breathe. And I'm like, well, you know, what's your mucus like? Are you know, she's like, oh, I'm just having to pull it out of my nose. And I'm like, well, you have a sinus infection. You know, even though that was clear, she couldn't breathe. She's impacted. She's like, I'm like, how long's this been going on? Oh, for a week. You know, she's 9. A week? You didn't tell me? Well, I thought everybody's snot was like this. Like, no. So our body is constantly trying to talk to us. It's sending us messages, and we need to not ignore that. And we tend to do that a lot, as we were talking about earlier. We just kind of push through. So we were talking about earlier about simplifying. So I want to do that. I want to address some really basic nutritional needs and how to handle those that everybody can do. They're easy. You're going to feel better, and I'm going to save you money today too if you do these things. So we're going to address that. But I do want to say that all of our bodies are an ecosystem, and they're all the same in the way that they are supposed to function and design. Very unique. They're very different. And that's going to depend on like inherited health conditions, our own personal health history, the circumstances in which we live, if we have nutrition attainable to us and things like that. So what I like to start with people is just talking about the basics, like the nutritional essentials that they should have. And there are 6 of them, although some people say there's like 7 and some people go as far as 12. I'm talking about the 6 basic ones, and I'm going to just go over this because some of us watching may know this, but there are a lot of people that, you know, maybe they had one nutrition class, maybe they didn't pay attention, maybe they just don't know these things. And so I just want to talk about those for just a second. They're called essential nutrients because while our body needs them to function, they can't make these themselves. We have to put them into our, so that's why they're essential for function. And those would be things like carbohydrates. And I know people are going to freak out and be like, no, I'm not supposed to eat carbohydrates, that's fattening. I get that a lot, but complex carbohydrates are actually very important. And I would love to break all of this down and tell you guys exactly why, but just for the sake of time, I'm just going to go over what they are. Proteins, it doesn't have to all come from protein. Fats, the good fats, vitamins, minerals, and water. Okay, those are the 6 basic ones. And if I had to choose like one of these to focus on and talk about that's really essential, I want to emphasize water, how important hydration is. I cannot stress that enough. I have had clients who've gone into early labor simply because they were not well hydrated. So I believe like many health problems and pain in the body stems just from that. We're either dehydrated or we're underhydrated. And I think most people walk around that way and don't realize it. And they also aren't aware of like how to calculate how much water to be drinking. Kyle and I talked about that a few days ago. He asked me like, how much water would you recommend? So the one size fits all that we've always all been taught is 8-ounce glasses a day, right? So it's just like 8 cups of water a day. So it's 64 ounces. And we're all different ages, sizes, you know, activity levels. And so clearly that does not work for everybody. So the new recommendation is that we calculate 1/2 to 1 ounce for every pound we weigh. And that's how much we should each be drinking every day. So, you know, for me, that's like 130 ounces. So I have a 24-ounce water bottle that I carry with me everywhere anyway. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to drink like 5 of these things a day. But that's okay. I mean, you're just going to sip on that throughout the day. And that has so many health benefits because every system in the body has to have enough hydration to function well and to function at peak capacity. So, you know, water does many things, like it alleviates or lessens pain. It's one of the first things I ask my massage clients when they come in and they're having a lot of trouble is I'm like, how do you feel your hydration? Oh, I drank a lot of water. I'm like, okay, well, that's great. You know, how much have you had today? Well, I haven't had any today. Try to work with these really, you know, these muscles and this fascia that's just like glued down because nothing's lubricated, right? It's really hard. And it's painful for them too. They're not enjoying their massage too much. It's going to improve circulation of your blood and your lymphatic fluid. And lymphatics really important for healing and for eliminating waste. We want good blood circulation because that takes oxygen everywhere that it needs to go. And you know, we're going to want lubricated joints and muscles because we want to move without pain, right? As much as we can, especially as we get older. And I'm going to say, not to mention, water really makes your skin look great. Anti-aging products are wonderful. I use them too, but really the true anti-aging product is from the inside out. It's what you put in your body. So I'm going to encourage you to get some kind of filtration system, whatever you can get. If it's just a Brita pitcher, that's better than nothing because we want to take in as much pure water as we possibly can. So that's something really easy most people can do is just increase their water intake. That's also going to improve your metabolism. It's going to make your metabolism function at peak level. I think I read recently that if you're drinking enough water, right, you're less hungry. Because a lot of times people walk around and they think they're hungry when really they're just underhydrated. And they might have a little tummy ache. Your body's sending you that signal, but actually it just needs moisture. So drink some water first and see how you feel. So once we have those like basic blocks of nutrition discussed, I would talk with people about specific problems that they're maybe experiencing, and then how we can maybe treat some of those challenges with nutrition, and we can figure out like what's maybe their diet. The best way, of course, to like get a baseline, I can't diagnose you. A lot of people that friends and family that ask me to help have an idea of what's health, or they have a diagnosis, and so they want to know how to treat that in an alternative way to medications. We can talk about that. So, if people have multiple allergies and multiple problems going on, I usually recommend they see a functional medicine doctor who is going to do some blood work, and they're going to look at a lot more than like your iron and your B and your D levels. And they're going to look at everything, amino acids, like minerals, all the vitamins. And that's really important if you're going to be treating yourself with nutrition and supplements. So I'm a great support of that for sure, and helping you figure out what foods that you need. But I always recommend, I just remind people I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose these problems, and let's get a really good look at what's going on inside your body. Okay, so I promised you some simple things everybody could do that is going to make you feel great fast, and it's going to save you some money, okay? So one of those things is ditching the soda. If you're a soda drinker, get rid of it. The sugar alone is so damaging. We were just talking earlier about how much soda.
Oh, it's water.
Oh, it's good.
It's lemon water.
I thought you were making fun of me. You're like, right on cue. Let me drink that.
I thought he was doing that too.
Let me drink that. Right.
Nope, lemon water. Sorry.
Hilarious. It is. Lemon water is great.
All that extra sparkling lemon water.
Good. I like that too. All that sugar is going to lower your immune system. It raises your blood sugar, of course. It impedes your hydration because you're drinking that instead of water. It's full of the high fructose corn syrup that we were talking about before, as well as like chemicals and caffeine, and just, it really has no benefit to your body. So my question is always why, let's figure out why you're drinking it. I don't, 9 times out of 10, people are just formed that habit, right? It's a habit we have to break. That's why they're drinking.
Well, actually, I researched that for you. There are several subject matter expert sites that do analysis on that. People claim that they drink it even though they know it's bad for them because, one, they think it tastes better than water, and two, it is in some bizarre circles. You do realize that it counts towards your liquid intake. So when they go and kind of, pardon my expression, half-ass research stuff, there are federal agencies and state agencies that will say that that counts towards your fluid intake for the day.
Fluid intake, but not water intake. That's 2 different things.
Actually, no, it isn't. It is from your perspective, but it isn't from a medical perspective. It's not the same. So, it is the same. They will count coffee, tea, soda, anything, right? Juice, all of that stuff. They will calculate the water content of that, but not even the pure water content. They will just count the fluid intake content of that towards your overall fluid intake for the day. This is a misnomer, and it shouldn't be put that way, but that's what they do. So your guideline is correct. What they should do. There's also a caution that people can get hypo atriemic, right? You know that.
Right. Yes.
So too much water, your kidneys can't flush it, and you dilute the sodium content in your blood, and this is very dangerous, can in fact kill you. Happens to a lot of kids that go raving, back in the day, and would drink water after water after water because I guess MDMH causes that, and they would become hyponatremic and die right there on the floor. So it has to be done in balance, but your guideline is correct and accurate. But people drink it for 2 reasons. 1, for taste, they claim, and 2, because there are many institutions that will tell them that it's okay. It counts towards your fluid intake for the day. And it's
Wow.
wrong, or it should be wrong.
It should be wrong. Okay. So, you know, if you want to have a treat now and then of a soda, you know, there are a lot of clean sodas on the market, I guess you could call them. And, you know, our family enjoys those sometimes at like birthday parties or on a holiday. Like it's a very rare occasion that we have a soda. My kids didn't grow up with it around the house. That's just our family. But yes, I'm a big proponent of water for all the good reasons. I do not count it. I do not count sodas as your fluid intake. I'm going to say, too, to avoid processed foods and fast foods. So my rule of thumb raising our kids was, you know, if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. That's kind of little motto that we live by. We were looking at the ingredients on foods. So I always feel like just because the FDA is like approved something is safe to consume doesn't really mean it's food. So we can think about that for a minute. No, if it's not something that's got nutritional content and it's not benefiting your body, and just because they're saying this is safe for consumption, in my mind, I'm not categorizing that as because your food, the ingredients in your food should just be more food. That's what your ingredients should be. It shouldn't be things that we can't pronounce. These foods have a lot of preservatives in them sometimes and additives. I read a study some years ago when my kids, you know, wanted to eat. There's a lot of cookouts in Hawaii and a lot of birthday parties and a lot of hot dogs being served. And I'm like, we just can't eat those because they're full of things that that have found to be DNA altering, you know, the nitrates and the nitrates and things like that aren't naturally occurring. Those are really, really bad for you. And that's happening because your body is taking whatever you feed and it's trying to turn it into something. It's trying to nutrients that it needs. Okay. Also high in sodium many times, health problems like high blood pressure. That's going to adversely affect your heart. It causes like tension, inflammation in the body, and inflammation in the body is not always a bad thing. That's our body's natural reaction to like an injury. It's trying to heal, right? If we're sick or something, but if what we're eating is causing inflammation, that's a problem, especially as we age because it causes a lot of pain. As I was mentioning earlier, if you're a meat eater, reduce your meat intake to 2 to 3 days a week. That's not only going to give your body time to like break down and process all the animal protein, but your choice has a large impact on the sustainability of our planet's resources. So it's a win-win as far as I see, eating less meat. Okay, here's where people usually start throwing things at me in class when I recommend giving up processed sugars. And that people have a really hard time with that. And look, I mean, I enjoy desserts too, you know, those are things of life, but the good news is you can have your cake and eat it too if it's prepared in a way that's healthier. So it's not like, you know, and you know, I used to say, oh, I have a little, you know, treat, a sweet treat every week. And some of my friends were like, once a week, you know, they were like, we have to have dessert every day. So then it's not a treat anymore. You're having it every day. So when I bake,
it's a lifestyle choice. You have to do what you're proposing, which is, you know, what you're teaching them, which is, you know, eat to live, you know, not live to eat, and to make wise, intelligent choices. And, you know, if you're going to sit back and quibble with the instructor telling you that, you know, a treat is supposed to be a treat and once a week is sufficient, and you want to say, no, I want a Hershey bar every day, then expect you're going to pay the consequences for that, you know, kind of thing.
Absolutely, sadly, you know, but that is true. Some alternatives to processed sugar when you're baking is like, I like to use, and it only takes like a tablespoon, but grade A maple syrup. I use that. My baked goods don't taste overly sugary, but there's a sweetness there. So I haven't done a lot of research into these, but there's a lot of people like to use stevia. I have used monk fruit. I've used like fruits to sweeten, and then you can use pure cane sugar too. And I would say if you're going to use that, reduce the amount the recipe calls for. You're really not going to miss it all that much. You know, things don't have to be like overly sweet to enjoy them. A lot of desserts in Japan, what they consider desserts, we would consider totally bland because they don't use a lot of sugar in their treats.
Yeah.
And then
They do use a lot of MSG.
what's that?
They do use a lot of MSG. So, but you're correct. And it's other cultures consider certain things. Asian cultures do consider things like fruit to be a dessert or an after dinner dessert, treat, is to have raw fruit in some fashion. And I will say to you that when people, at least in my 66 years, my experience has been that when you eliminate these things, as my wife and I have always done, is that these sweets are not something that we, number one, stock around the house.
Right.
So you can't go open up the, and find a pie laying there, or, we don't have cookies and candy and muffins and all these other kinds of things, because they're just, if they're there, you're going to eat them. The same thing with chips and the other stuff, as I'm sure you're going to bring up. But it's if you, again, back to what I was asking you to do, which is, giving people these meal planning things where people say, okay, well, then what am I supposed to buy? I go to the commissary or I go to where else. What should I buy? I've got 5 people to feed. How do I do it? How do I stretch my dollar to get the most value, the most nutritional value for the, the most appropriate amount of money? And I can feed a family of 5 for 30 days or 15 days based on this meal plan. That's something that people really want. And on the water intake, just so you know, I didn't make it up. The CDC is what publishes this, among others. Daily fluid intake, total water in parentheses, is defined as the amount of water consumed from foods, plain drinking water, and other beverages, which include coffee, tea, soda, blah, 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 etc., including milk and other things. So they calculate that in that fashion, and you have a lot of medical practitioners that will tell clients or tell patients, they will tell them that very thing. If somebody says, do I need to really cut down on the, on this or that, they will follow the guideline, which says, well, I want you to try to reduce your soda intake. Most will. But the main theme is not a healthy one, as you're projecting. The main theme across our nation is, well, it's part of your daily fluid intake. So, we want to make sure you get that daily fluid intake. So people get screwy with things, they'll do a giant liter bottle of soda. And if you tell them, well, you are pre-diabetic, well, then they'll start drinking diet soda, or if you tell them you're not supposed to drink coffee or not drink that much coffee, or rather, they'll, instead of swapping out for just drinking water, which people have an aversion to for some reason. And I don't get it. It's a matter of just training yourself, as you said, as I just came in, which was training your taste buds to accept that as normal. And it may take you a year. So what? If it adds 10 years to your life, be grateful for that somebody told you to do that, right? Not, don't quibble over the fact you don't ever get to drink a big gulp or something again, right?
Right.
So it is really just a training thing. And if people will give up these things like sugars and salts and sodas and all the things that just completely saturate the body with toxins and poisons in very small amounts, like 8 ounces of soda is way over the limit on everything from sodium to sugar, what you should be.
Yes.
Well, if I may,
not to mention the known carcinogenic links in things that are, artificial sweeteners that
Right.
They know
Yeah.
we're there, right? That also have cognitive function issues in the neural and glial cells of the brain. Yes, I'm sorry, Kyle.
No, that's what I was going to say. When it gets into the brain and the cognitive stuff, I mean, most of this stuff, because of it's so intense in the sugar and in the sodium and in those things, it causes our body to crave those things and be addicted to those things. And you have to remember, it came on layer by layer. As a young child, you didn't just, you probably weren't intaking it as a young child as you probably are now. And you have to come off of it the same way. It's a behavioral thing. You have to change the behavior. And to change a behavior, it isn't, you don't just go, okay, I'm going to cut this thing out 100%. It's gone. No processed sugars. Bye. It's okay. What small thing are you going to take out of your diet for a week or for a month? And then you add to that after that month and add to it after that month until ultimately your behavior's completely changed. And like Dr. Morehouse said, it may take a year to do that, but you do it layer by layer, and then your body's not even going to realize it.
No.
Because it's going to adjust so slowly. It's like if anybody that wears glasses, if you remember, you didn't realize you needed glasses until you put the glasses on and saw you needed them. It's because your eyesight went away so gradually over time. Your body doesn't know that, doesn't notice it. And you don't notice it consciously. And it's the same thing when getting rid of a bad habit or changing dietary needs. If you change it slowly, and over a long period of time, it's going to be easy and simple, and you can do that with any addiction too.
Well, maybe
you'll nail it out.
Maybe even making it like a trade too, like maybe cutting out a specific kind of soda and then incorporating a vegetable into your diet to have more of that.
Yes, you can't just cut out. You also have to replace with something good because your body has to put something there.
What also is helpful, or has been for me in years past, is having instructional guides that actually give me a reference for the amounts. And that is something that many people struggle with as well, is what does 4 ounces of meat look like?
Right.
You know, and people don't understand that because their reference for their meat intake is whatever comes on the double Whopper that they order, or the giant 12-ounce steak that they order, or whatever else, right? And when you say 4 ounces and you say, do you know how big 4 ounces is? 4 ounces for a piece of beef is the size of a deck of playing cards. That's the size of your serving of protein for that meal. And people will rebel because they're like, holy cow, that doesn't cover my double meat Whopper. Well, but those are helpful things that experts like you, subject matter experts, share with people, and it kind of locks it into their memory of I can cut this in half, and I can have not the Whopper, but I can cut the serving of meat in half, and I can actually have this for lunch tomorrow, kind of a thing. And I got into that practice. I just did. And we would go out to dinner with friends and things. And I never sat there and finished a plate. I just never did. After a while, I couldn't finish a plate. I mean, seriously, I would have like 5-6 bites and I'd be like, man, I'm done with this. And my wife would get upset because that meant I was going to bag this up and go walking into a show here in Vegas, holding a bag full of, a doggy bag full of whatever. It was usually some ridiculous thing like garlic something. So the whole place smelled, and people would be, looking around like, who smells like a garlic roll here? And it'd be, it's me. It's my dinner here. Never mind. It's my dinner. You have it for lunch tomorrow. So you get into that portion control idea, and you have these visual cues that you offer them that says, this is what it should look like. So everybody knows what, even if they don't play cards, which I don't, but I know what the size of a deck of playing cards is. So somebody brings me something, I look at for a steak, I'll cut it in half, and save it because I know that that's the one I'm going to eat and the other one I'm not. So anyway, that helps for me.
That is a great tip. So something to bear in mind, we're talking about portion, 3/4 of your plate should be fruits and vegetables. It should be colorful fruits and vegetables. And that does not leave a lot of space for, the meat and the carbohydrates. So those are smaller amounts. They have very good visuals, actually. You're talking about visuals online of plates now for kids and adults. It shows you the serving size, like how much of the plate should be fruits and vegetables, how much should be a grain, and how much should be the meat. I find that a lot more helpful in educating people than showing them like the food pyramid. I think that it's a lot more helpful. So, the last thing I would suggest of those things, so, we're talking about things to not put in our body, because that's just as important as the things that we do put in our body. And the other thing I would say to all of that is just, you get moving. There's this new concept where they say, the sitting is the new smoking, because we do that so much as Americans. So that needs to be combated as much as possible. And, you may have a job where you're at a desk for 8 hours a day. And so what do you do? How do you get moving? Kyle, you have some ideas about that?
No, I was just saying that's me. I'm at a desk.
Well, they say it's actually beneficial to your heart, even if you're just getting up for short periods of time, or if you stand some of the time that you're working. It's not as good as a workout, but at least you're moving around, because you want your circulation and things to move. You want your heart to work somewhat. So, if you can get up every 30 minutes to 5 minutes to walk around your office, to go check on things, to deliver things, to go to the bathroom, park far away, take the stairs, do all those little things that people have always, and then, if you can, take a walk during your lunch break. Take a walk before work. And what's wrong with walking to work if you live close by? I come over here to Darcy's 3 times a week to work out with my son-in-law, who's a fitness trainer. And, we live 6 minutes away, which is about almost 2 miles. And so I walk it. I come over here because I'm not going to get in my car and drive 6 minutes if I don't have to. Obviously, when it was slick with ice and snow, I couldn't do that. But weather permitting, yes, I walk. And then when I'm done with my workout, I walk home. So, trying to stay as fit as I can, because I know the rest of the day I may be having to do things on the computer for work. So get moving, get up and do your chores at home. I know that's not exciting, but sometimes if I'm so busy and I have to stay home, or Jared's not available to work out with me, besides walking the dog, which is another great thing to do, get a dog that those dogs they're gonna keep you active. So if you can have a dog, that is a great asset. But sometimes I just say, okay, I'm gonna do my chores as many as I can, as fast as I can for 15. I'm gonna get my heart pumping doing those. So do your yard work, do whatever you can. There are a lot of things we can do that's within our power to do, that are beneficial to us, and we just don't move as much anymore as a society. So I'm a big proponent of the get moving as well.
Movement's big.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions for me, or?
No, do you have any? To say?
Not off the top of my head.
Not off the, yeah, no, I think that was very good. I think, and that's what I was going to say, is like wrapping up into the end, was what is something that somebody could start on that's very simple that they could walk away from this show doing tonight or tomorrow with their diet.
Or I guess also one that comes to mind is, are there also like recommended kind of places to shop for produce and stuff that aren't like crazy expensive for people, but also have good quality goods?
Yes, I have lots of thoughts about that. And we kind of touched on food deserts earlier, and there are a lot of communities here in Kansas City, Missouri, that to me it's inconceivable, because we live in agricultural, we share an agriculture, we're on a border, but we have 2 agricultural states right here. A lot of the small towns, not rural towns, but small towns, most of them have farmers markets into the fall. That is a great place to purchase produce, and you can talk to the farmers about, how they're growing and their practices, and if they spray, you can talk to them about those things. So that's a great resource. And then downtown Kansas City, we have a fantastic farmers market. that goes on. Right now, they're just doing it once a week, I think, because of COVID. It's starting up soon. It'll go, there's a couple of months here in the spring through March, and then it starts up again in April. It goes all the way to October. I love going there. They have vendors that have spices in bulk. They have, I mean, it's just beautiful vegetables. They have the City Market. It's at City Market. I will just give anybody listening a tip who wants to utilize that, because parking down there is awful. But if you go and you pay a small fee at Union Station for parking, then you can take the tram, the shuttle, the trolley or whatever, and it takes you down to City Market. It comes back and forth like every hour, and there's plenty of parking at Union Station. There's not a lot of parking down at City Market, which I think is why a lot of people avoid it. They even have some organic farmers down there now as well. You can get dairy, you can get fresh eggs. You know, again, it's locally sourced, and you're talking to the farmers, and you can get a lot more there for, you know, than what you pay at the supermarket. So I would suggest that. Excuse me. There are a lot of programs right now in schools, supermarkets, gardening associations that are trying to combat food deserts and food insecurity and food justice. So there's a lot of programs out there, and I'm going to mention a couple of them. There's just a few that I know of. I'm sure that there's more, and then I'll, you know, like to talk to you about some things you could do in your, you know, on your end in your community as well. But you know, Canby's markets, they have a great program for helping with food deserts and growing food in these communities, and so they're always looking for community volunteers and educators. You can go on there, and because education is part of it. Alleviating food waste is another part of that. So you can go on their website, and that's KANBE and S actually markets, and you can read about that and sign up. Kansas City Community Gardens, or KCCG, they also will help you start a community garden if you need that in your area. And then, you know, most of the schools here now, public schools, they have, which I know I've helped with in the past, they have these backpack programs for kids to take home full of food for the weekend, because they can't get a meal maybe in the middle of the day. So get involved with something. You can start a community garden in your area. There are a lot of businesses like Target, Home Depot, Lowe's, those businesses, they do community donations every month. They like to give back. And so I've applied for things we were doing at schools before, programs and things we're having, and you just apply, and then, you know, they let you know if your application is accepted, or if that's something they're going to donate to. But those would be great resources for supplies. I know it's expensive to garden, but if you're starting a community garden in your neighborhood or in your town, you know, I would get in touch with them. There's a lot of seed companies too. I know Baker Creek, they sometimes donate seeds for like gardens at schools, kitchen gardens at schools and things like that. So, I mean, it just takes a little digging around, but there are some ways to get involved and to combat hunger, you know, and it should be something that we're all concerned about, right? Mm-hmm. It's not, you know, we can't make a more sustainable world. We can't expect everybody to be nutritionally sound if they don't, you know, a lot of times we get this idea in our head that people are making good choices or bad choices. But from my perspective, from what I've seen, it's some people have choices and some people don't have choices. And so when it comes to something like food, which is a basic need that all human beings share, everyone should have choices. They should be able to get access to their food. So there's things we can do. When I was in Kansas, there was a summer that I just kind of went around to my neighbors and checked out what resources each of us had available. And we were, you know, gardening. We were just starting to garden. And so I found out like what success people were having growing certain things, right? My success was I could grow a lot of really good greens and herbs. And so I was really good at that. My other neighbor was good at tomatoes and strawberries somebody was doing zucchini and cucumbers and they were having success. And so what we decided to do was we just had this program where we traded food. And that's what we did. And we designated our gardens to growing, I'm going to grow this much food for 5 or 6 families. So that summer I provided for my family plenty of greens for the whole summer because all I had to do was concentrate. And I grew them well into the summer because I put a shade up and all these things. So I provided for our family and 5 other families. And it did not take a lot of space. And so, I think people don't realize that it is some work, but it benefits everybody around you, and you're getting something from it too, and you're giving, and those things save you money, right? And all these things that we talked about, I think Drusha, you had sent me a question that was like, is it more expensive to eat this way? And we've talked about how much more expensive organics are, but if out like the things you're spending.
You're cutting out a bit.
Yeah, we lost your audio.
It's that bandwidth issue,
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's try this.
try that.
I think she completely left now.
No, I pulled her out, and then we'll we lost her completely.
Yeah.
Well,
I can
see her.
summarize what is a lot of things. I really think that people that have her knowledge need to go the extra step and pull together these kinds of things that I was suggesting. I know it's a difficult thing to do, and people get this idea. They don't think, there she is.
Sorry.
I was just summarizing a number of things. I was just saying that, again, that people who are subject matter experts, as you are in their areas, that you have all these things that you are talking about doing, and frankly, they make me exhausting just hearing about them. But you have an ability to, and you need to embrace this notion that you can pull together a book and or a web page that you can objectify these ideas and these lessons and this information that's there and make it a really comfortable place for people to go. Because again, the world needs what you have to offer, but it has to just be put together in a way that you can reach so many more. And people are just overwhelmed with life and just the living of it right now. And particularly in the midst of a pandemic. So the act of researching and educating themselves and following up on a regimen, and it's just impossible for so many people. Not a lot, but a lot. A lot of them, a good percentage of the population, and they need help. Men, women, children, adolescents, they all need help. There's so much conflicting information out there, or there are these exhaustive government guidelines, which are really bad guidelines. They are suggestions to school systems and other kinds of things, as opposed to being rules and regulations that those school systems must follow in order to ensure that our children are being fed healthy meals for whatever meals that they're getting there. And even though they might say that we suggest that they get, this much protein, this much this, and this much that, the problem and the truth is that it depends on the school district and what it can afford. So you have some school districts that can barely handle macaroni and cheese with a slice of bologna. That sounds extreme, but it's true. And you would think that there would be federal programs to subsidize it, and maybe there are, but there are just not enough. There's not enough to go around. So many of the suggestions that you offer are great to help parents that are stressing over stretching it, figure out ways to supplement their food in a healthy way for them. But people need ideas and suggestions. They need easy to follow guides that tell them how to show how to use different regional grocery stores and with item lists and menus. I know I keep saying that, but I just want to really press that home. You've got to write a book. You got to have a web presence. so people can find you and can interact with you, and you can share your knowledge with them. You need to help them know where to shop again and to what to buy, and show them the advantage of taking a lunch to school vice, standing in a line for pizza and chocolate milk, among other things.
Our kids took their lunches, and I'll just say to that, like, since we're
Gotta make
talking
a
about
brown bag and
lunches,
it cool again.
yeah, it is. There was a time in middle school, my youngest was like, I'm tired of taking lunches. I just want to get the school lunch, for convenience or because her friends were or whatever. And, you pick your battles as a parent. I hate school. I'm like, okay, if you want to do that. So she did that for a year or two. And, she's a dancer. She dances. She's a ballet dancer. She dances many hours a week. And she was starting to get like a little like bloating right here in her stomach. And, she just kind of felt crummy. And she was really gassy, and she was just having a lot of problems. And she finally, by ninth grade, she said to me, I think those school lunches are really messing with me. I'd like to start taking my lunch again.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I think that's a good idea. Let's just try it and see what happens. And so, it's just one of those times as a parent, like that was a learning opportunity. I didn't like she was eating that crap every day for 2 years. I wish she'd figured it out sooner, but because she figured it out and we had that moment, she's a great eater now. So the school lunches not only aren't nutritionally sound, I feel like they cause a lot of gut problems as well. So
Yeah,
at least
they're not good. They're not fresh vegetables and things like that. They're canned vegetables, and most of them are doing the best they can with the budgets
Yeah.
that they have to
Yeah.
feed the numbers of children that they have to feed, particularly in low income areas.
Lunches. Yeah, a lot
So
of them are
it's a very
free lunches.
difficult thing. But if
Mhm.
parents, even if a single mom knows where to shop regionally and what to shop for, and has a plan that she can easily follow, they're not going to go to the CDC and wallow through all of the suggestions that are there. But they would go to a place like your website or pick up your pamphlet or your book, or ask you to come and speak, to a community and to share your wisdom and knowledge about this stuff, and to put that in there. And we're probably getting close to ending, but I want to just say this to you, that you have a powerful message. I dig it. And I'm happy that you're putting it out there. I'm not always happy with the message that comes out of a lot of people that we talk to, but I'm happy about your message. It's good. You're honest about it. You step up and you say, look, it's not the only way, but it is a way, and it's a productive and a positive way. So do this. You're not trying to say that your way is the only way to do this. You had a lot of really great suggestions. I also want to say that in addition to your powerful message, that I want to just to say to you and your husband, and those like you who are living and raising a special needs child, that you are truly heroes in our eyes. You really are. You're doing something spectacular in the face of great adversity and unfairness in a lot of ways, but you are loving and caring for and raising these children in just amazing ways. And I always just stand in awe of you for doing that, and I want you to know that. So,
wow. Thank you.
yeah, and I know the three of us greatly admire you and what you're doing. So, I hope there's a way that we can help you. Clearly,
Well, I'm here to support. Like Jerusha and Kyle and I are doing just that. I think we're trying to get out these message alternatives, and we're here to support you. If you're watching and you would like a consultation, or you would like some help, meal planning, budgeting, living better. I mean, that's why we're here. We all have a potential, and it's very unique, and our circumstances are all different, and everybody's just doing their best, and that's what we can do. And so we're here to support you, to help you become your best and to live your best version of yourself, and I want that too. I want people there's no reason why we shouldn't feel good. Bad things happen, and yeah, there's a pandemic going on. It's been extremely stressful. I have a friend in Cleveland. She's an artist. She hasn't had work. My brother hasn't always had work. And yet, she's able to. My brother has some, he's immunocompromised, so he can't do this. But my photographer friend, she's been going and she's been working with organizations that give out food to people who just wouldn't have food otherwise. And so, it's been a very stressful time. There's a lot of good going on too. And that's what I like to see, people trying to help each other through this. We're trying to be a community. There's that out there too. We don't hear about it enough. And we have to reach out to each other. So, I'm happy to do that. Kyle and Drusha have the same message. I'm so pleased to be working with them. And they are just amazing. And thank you, Dr. Morehouse, for all your kind words and encouragement. I know if I do anything, I'll definitely be reaching out to you to figure that out. But that's amazing that you say that. And yeah, I would help anybody anytime with that. I've to all the military families out there, I would say that being nutritionally sound is going to help you and your family with the stress of all the moving and all the changes all the time that occur. When we're nutritionally sound, we handle stress better. And I would say add to that good hydration and proper sleep, because you're going to need it. And, show up for yourself. You're worth it. We're all worth it to stay committed to these things when we want to make changes. We're worth the effort, and we just have to show up and believe that about ourselves. And so it's not unattainable. These are just things that we can do to, improve ourselves. They're not hard things. They may feel hard at first because, we're used to doing other things the other way that are just comfortable and familiar. And I think we default to the familiar when we feel overwhelmed by all the information and what life's throwing at us. But, that's why you get a support group like this. You get people who can support you through that and encourage you. And I would suggest too to military families who, anytime before a move, something that we found really valuable was, 2 weeks before we moved, we started eating to boost our immune system, because, as you're moving, you're going to come in contact with a lot of people in close quarters sometimes, and you're going to be exposed to their germs. And then when you move to a new environment, you have to acclimate to that environment's, biome too. And so there's maybe some new germs and viruses you haven't experienced before. And, how many moms I've talked to that are like, oh, we were in transit and, so-and-so got diarrhea or somebody started throwing up. And so there's just some things that we can do to kind of alleviate that. And if we start planning on it earlier. So, make it a part of your moving plan is what I would suggest, and to all the military families out there. We found it helpful anyway.
Moving of that nature, even though you do it so many frequently as a military family, it's still one of the most stressful things a family can do, right up there in terms of stress, as with a death in the family. So it really is that, that's what it is. So that's good advice that you just gave them.
Thank you. I hope it helps someone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melodye. We're really excited to be having you with us and working with us. And Melodye's an amazing resource. We also will be having her Fridays. She's making posts on the Health Hacks and Beyond group for nutrition. So if you guys have more questions specifically that you want a little bit more insight on, you can comment on the post she makes. Maybe we may even consider doing a Q&A post where you can just put a bunch of questions that you have about nutrition, and we can get more involved that way too.
I will say I don't know everything, and if I don't know something, I will tell you, but I will help you figure it out. We'll find the answer together.
Yeah, I think it's really important, because a lot of times, and especially as a specialist, the nice thing about being a specialist is if you don't know the answer, you know the principles behind it, and you know how to look and find the answer.
Right.
Versus the person that has no clue and they're just searching randomly. They're just going to take whatever comes their way, which may or may not be correct, because they don't necessarily know the principles they're looking for.
Right. So let me help with that. I'll make it easier. I promise.
Yes. Well, and with that, we'll put an end to this stream tonight. Thank you for tuning in with us, and we will see you guys all next Friday.